got quiet in a hurry. Okay, we're going to start the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners meeting for December 17th, 2024. I'm going to start by closing the executive session and moving to regular session and calling roll. Commissioner Shepard?
Present.
Go.
Here.
Commissioner Bell? And we start the meetings with public comment. This is a little different than speaking to the topic of the day, which is moving from 3 to 5. So public comment is for anything other than that. We'll have a time period set aside for that discussion. So if you'll hold those comments and just talk to us about anything else that you'd like to talk about when it comes to the port. I'm assuming we're bifurcating that. And you've got 3 minutes. We ask that you please keep it respectful. We ask that you not applaud, boo, throw anything at somebody who's at the microphone just because you disagree with them. We'll try to keep it civil. We want to hear your opinions. So anybody who's got anything that they would like to speak to the commission about that is not part of the hearing today, we'd appreciate to hear it. And I'm going to start on my list.
Donald Scott.
Donald Scott, would you like to say something in commission? Please come to the microphone.
Oh, I gotta go to the microphone? Okay. I'm not good at that sort of thing.
We'll take your fingerprints later, too.
Hi, I'm Donald Scott, and I've been renting a slip from the Port of Bellingham for 19 years. I waited 3.5 years in Blaine to get a liveaboard slip at Gate 8, and I've been there for about 15 years. And I always pay my rent, and I got a complaint from the harbor master about sexual harassment. What happened is I told my neighbor lady who's working on the boat next to me, I like spandex. That's the whole thing. It wasn't sexual, it wasn't anything like that. I have no desire for this person. And so I got an eviction notice, and I checked all 100 slip marinas in Washington State, and there's nobody that'll take my size of boat for a liveaboard. And so, you know, I think this is totally unfair. I think it's freedom of speech thing. I think it's vindictive harbor master, possibly. I don't really know the guy very much. So that's about it. I got 5 boats next to me. This girl works for the company called Carefree, and I got 10, 20 people at my boat every day, all summer, all spring, all fall, and they're all chattering. And I've been asking them and then telling them, you know, keep the noise down and all this stuff, but it's constant. And so that's I think Heather, Carefree's manager, is vindictive against me for that purpose, and she filed this complaint on behalf of an employee of hers named Mary. And I talked to Mary about it, and she said she doesn't remember any incident at all. So that's it, you know. I'm desperate. I don't have any place to live. After 19 years, I'm a disabled senior, and I just hope that we can work this out to be a fair thing where maybe I just move to a different slip or a different gate, and then everybody's satisfied, I think. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else have a public comment for the commission? Who are you?
My name's Doug Carlberg, and you're lucky because I'm going to speak twice today. Anyway, something's been bugging me when I watched the brouhaha over the scrap metal on the waterfront. And it wasn't so much the scrap metal, but it was the difficulty in figuring out what the public wanted. You guys represent 230,000 people, maybe more today in the county. And I think that most public entities, including this one, are struggling with a feedback loop to where you can actually figure out what people want. 230,000 of them how do you figure that out? Now, I watched a small group over the scrap metal, just to give you an example. They were very vocal, very organized, fairly well off, many of them retired, and they caused quite a bit of controversy. So they formed a Facebook site called Save the Waterfront. It got 230 followers. I have 600 followers myself. the site Bellingham has gone to crap has almost 9,000 followers. But it kind of gives you an idea that when you get feedback, you can start isolating problems that people want solved. And what I would suggest to you guys is a letter to the owners of the Port of Bellingham, much like Warren Buffett does every year. It's not written by staff. You get in there and you tell them how you feel, why you feel this way, what you'd like to see, what you did wrong. That's an important one, because that's what builds trust in this institution. And I think if you did that, you would leave something, when you guys decide to retire, you'd leave something in place, like daytime meetings, like cameras, YouTube. Those were all changes that brought the owners and the citizens of Whatcom County into the port. And I think it's to your benefit when you sit down and you get some feedback and it says the folks want to go this way, and so Doug gets up here and says, I don't want to go that way. Well, it's easy for you to say, Doug, sorry, but I got all these people over here that I represent, and they overwhelmingly would like to see this happen, and it's not what you'd like to have happen, but I think it would make your job easier. I just watched the struggle there. So that would be my suggestion as you guys consider as part of this consideration for PR. Write a letter once a year and then figure out some way for folks to answer questions or give you some sort of honest feedback from a broad variety of citizens, not just the ones that take the time to come in here and yak like I do, right? So there you go.
I'm going to go down this list, and if you're on this list by mistake, I will transfer you over to the public hearing. So Ken Hertz, are you for the 3 to 5? So I'm going to move you over. Mark?
I got stuff to say about this.
Hey, Mark.
Good evening, everybody. It's so nice to see everyone show up to talk about pickleball. But besides that, I wanted to address some stuff that came up because I watched the meeting minutes. And again, I'm Mark Jerry. I'm a Sunnyland resident. And there was stuff in regards to the HII and the stuff that happened in the county council not that long ago. Before that, there was planning commission meetings, and they made a working document that Mr. Deshmani and I got together and collaborated on some changes to that to protect labor happening in the county, but potentially happening with, say, transtainer shipments and bulk commodities. And we, because of his expertise in electrical battery storage, we talked about that and made some changes to the wording in that. So I think that that information's been very useful and will be a good compromise, even if it's not just unlimited battery storage going all hours, 100%. Because I made the quip about pickleball, I do want to say it is, in my mind, from this meeting you had, it looked like a good use of the land and will have more second and tertiary effects on our economy, but it won't bring the jobs in that we need to have livable wages in Whatcom County. People will come here and spend money, that's great, but it won't be like them working down at the shipping terminal, unloading or loading, whatever you happen to bring in for us to do so with. So again, thank you.
Mark, could you spell your last name?
G-E-R-I.
Thank you. Josh Becker?
Hello, I'm Josh. I came to support Don because he's never been a problem. He's always been amiable and calm and respectful. I believe that moving his boat to another slip would solve the entire problem, and I think an eviction notice is harsh. That's all.
Don Scott?
That was me.
Oh, you were already there.
You want me to talk again? Yeah. I guess say the same thing.
We've got it on tape. All right. Now we will, I'm going to move anybody else online that wishes to make a public comment.
Yes. Dan Tucker. Online.
Dan Tucker? I'll get right to you.
Huh?
Just a minute.
Yeah, my
Dan,
name's Dick Lavity.
hang on, Dan. We'll get to you.
I've been a port tenant for about 52 years, and been a neighbor of of Don's for close to 14, 15 years. And I believe the decision to move him out of the harbor was not a good decision. It would be far better just to put him in a different slip. It's somewhat like killing a gnat with a sledgehammer. It was just way too much reaction. Thank you.
What's your name again?
Dick Labadie, Labadie.
And you're in Blaine?
No, I'm here in Bellingham at KK 30. I also have my accounting office at 13 Harbor Mall for about 30 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? Otherwise, we'll go online. Atul?
Since the comment was made about the Planning Commission, my name is Atul Deshmani. I'm also a County Planning Commissioner. My term ends in January. So I just want this audience and all of you to know that it'd be great to have folks on the Planning Commission who have a background with industry and manufacturing. So it'll be, just wanted to put that advertisement out there. Thank you.
Send it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Don's friend and neighbor.
Name and,
Well, kind of. I
no,
live
what's your
on-
name?
Huh?
What's your name?
Brenda Stevens. And just for Don's character, he's been a good friend. He's helped me with systems on my boat that weren't quite right. He fixed them for me, stuff like that. And I do think having him move to a less business area where everybody needs to be active and they need to talk to each other and converse to operate their business. I just think that him being kind of in the middle of that would probably not be the best place for, like someplace where there isn't a business going on. Maybe a different slip. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to say anything? Please.
My name is Joy Gilfillan,
No.
and I'm sorry? You know. I'm speaking to give you guys a compliment and to thank you so very much for allowing the Lemhi Nation and the Native peoples to land in the port down here this year, and to be able to hold a celebration down there and to allow the Native peoples to have voice in the Port of Bellingham. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you for noticing. Anyone else in the audience before we get to Dan? Okay, Dan is online.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. I'm coming to you from Belize this week, so apologies I can't attend in person. But I wanted to give a shout out to the staff and to the commission, especially for your eyes and attention on the upcoming economic impact study. We've really appreciated working with your staff and working with McKinley Research, and we're really excited to publish that study with you guys and promote that information. And I also wanted to say I'm not going to be able to be at the public hearing later. I've got to run now because I am on vacation. But I wanted to say that the coalition will be involved in the discussion on 3 versus 5, and we'll be promoting information, talking about the pros and cons, and we're excited to have that discussion with you and the community. So thank you very much to all the staff that worked on that economic impact study, and thank you to all the coalition members I see in the audience. I will see everybody next week.
Thanks, Dan. Anyone else online? No? Okay, we will close off public comment. I do want to, at this point, go back to the regular meeting and mention that there are no advisory committee meetings scheduled for the remainder of 2024. That means our Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee is not meeting, as well as our Marine Advisory Committee. We are not meeting. And then move on to a new hire introduction. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Commissioners. My name's Barry Arps. Paul had to take off for an appointment at 4:30, but I'm a supervisor in Facilities Department. I work underneath Alex Hildreth. But Paul Kinsel was hired December 2nd, and he's a new member to our team. But if you see Paul around, give him a big welcome. But he had to take off for an appointment at 4:30. So anyways.
I just want to add to that a lot of you know Paul. He helped build Trackside. So he was one of the construction guys with David Vitt that was out there every day constructing everything. He was the manager of it early in its first year. So I'm sure I've introduced you to him at one point in time. Alex has been trying to hire him since that day, and we finally convinced him to come to work for us. I think it was Barry, not Alex, that he wanted to work for. So
Yeah, that's correct. So anyways, thanks for your time, and sorry you couldn't make it tonight, but maybe next time.
Love it. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, quick presentation, Elliot, on Granite Construction.
I just need to find the presentation. One moment, please. I'm Elliot Smith, the real estate director here at the Port of Bellingham. And I am, here we go.
Did you feel the need to have bodyguards?
Thank you. We have committed in the past to keep the community and the commissioners well informed as we entertain new business here at the Port of Bellingham. And one of the groups we have been talking to is Granite Construction. They have a long history here in the state of Washington and also in British Columbia. So we've invited James Essig and Steve Hitzel here tonight to present a little bit about their company. And after we've done that, my fellow directors, Brian Gowron and Tiffany Desmonas, will talk through some of the things that we have been discussing with them. And this evening, this is just a presentation to talk about Granite. And at a later date, we may bring back some further business to discuss, but today's just an introduction and a sort of framework about what we're discussing at the shipping terminal. So without further ado, I would like to pass over to James, and James will introduce Granite to you.
Spacebar.
I think so.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to listen to our presentation here about Granite Construction. My name is James Essig. I'm the Resource Development Manager for the Pacific Northwest District for Granite Construction and the Materials Division. I have with me today Stephen Hitzel. He's our Environmental Manager that works with the compliance team to comply with all of our permits across the state for our operations. On the construction side and on the material side at our aggregate sites and asphalt plant operations. As you can imagine, they're pretty permit intensive, and we have to keep a close eye on how we're managing and complying with those conditions of those permits. Today, I come to you to present a project and an idea to bring imported aggregate and land it here at the Bellingham Shipping Terminal. Granite Construction has worked in Whatcom County since 2007 and purchased the previous Wilder Construction Company, which was established in 1911. So Granite and Wilder have a long history here in Whatcom County and are looking to continue that history and kind of expand our operations and be able to provide the county with additional aggregate resources as the local ones are being consumed and are challenged to permit here in the county and all of Western Washington for that matter. Granite, we like to call ourselves one of the America's infrastructure companies. We do a lot of heavy civil construction, roads, bridges, fish culverts, asphalt paving, heavy civil types of stuff. On this slide, you can see there's a barge, and that's located on the Snohomish River. We're offloading aggregate that's being imported from Canada off of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, known as the Bamberton Quarry. And these are our aggregates feeding our facilities here down on the Snohomish. And in this photo, this is an actual picture of the quarry operations that are sitting on the Salish Sea. This is south of Nanaimo and north of Victoria. We've been operating this site for the past 2 years, landing rock in Snohomish, and looking to land rock here in Whatcom County at the Bellingham Shipping Terminal and other locations along the west coast, eventually, hopefully, down to the Columbia River and support our operations in southwest Washington. It's the other way. There we go. This is just an overshot of the Port of Bellingham, as I'm sure all of you are familiar with. It's a desirable location for us because you got a deep water dock. We can bring in an 8,000 ton barge, or even bigger barges, maybe 16,000 ton, depending upon what the market demands. It's great access, and it'll be our closest dropping point for these materials to our quarry in Canada. There'll be some investment in the port facilities with adding a conveyor and making some improvements to the dock with a hopper, and be able to convey the aggregate through the warehouse and out to the old log yard, where we'll stack the aggregate in bins and then be able to sell it to not only the public, but local contractors for local projects here in Bellingham. There are several aggregate sites in Whatcom County, but this is going to give us the opportunity to be able to provide these projects closer to town and minimize the amount of trucks that are coming in from the east, and be able to serve the needs of the projects in a closer vicinity. This is just some of the equipment that you would see down at the port. There's a hopper going onto a conveyor, so we'd load off the barges into the hopper, and then the video is showing the stackers, which would stack the aggregate in separate piles for different products that we would have. Their loader picture, common loader, nothing new there, just to handle the material, and a granite truck to deliver the materials to the site. We also have outside trucking companies that will come in and get products for their certain projects or their needs. As I said before, Granite's been here quite some time, previously Wilder. This is one of the operations that we operate out in Everson, so east or central Whatcom County. Been serving these communities in this county for a significant amount of time. I believe the first use permit or mining activity started there in 1949. It's a 300-acre site and still operates today. We're recycling materials there and feeding the asphalt plant to provide the materials for the road improvements here in Whatcom County and regionally. That's all I have here from my for Granite Construction. I thank you guys for the opportunities. If you have any questions about the operation, I'm here, and so is Steve, available to respond to any specifics that.
Any questions for you?
Yeah, the rock when it comes in is already pretty much clean, correct? It's a finished product.
It's crushed and processed material. Yes.
Yeah. So
different, it's fractionated in different sizes and for different specific uses. So
I noticed you had several hoppers, and it'd be a single hopper going through the on the dock going to the warehouse, or will we have
there's
multiple?
just one hopper.
Just single.
So they'll move, the barges, depending, usually on an 8,000 ton barge, will be maybe split into two products. So they'll unload one side and then switch over.
Well, sounds great. Thank you.
Right on.
Thank you.
Anything
Nothing
else?
further? Commissioner Shepard?
I'll listen to some of the rest of the presentation, let you know if we have questions at the end.
Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. We're going to tag team this presentation. Elliot introduced, Granite presented their business. I'll give a little background on kind of that review process that you guys have been talking to us about over the past year. Brian will step up and answer some environmental questions, and then Elliot will close out the presentation. So if you do have questions, we'll be happy to answer them, and we have plenty of people in the room. So with all that being said, this has taken a lot of collaboration with a lot of people internally and externally with Granite. They've been a collaborative and responsive partner to date. So I just wanted to recognize all the time and collaboration that's gone in, both with port staff across divisions. So let's get into, I have about 3 slides for you. This is sort of a visual of the internal process that we used as we were going through this with Granite. The Commission has kind of directed us to talk about. So you'll see the visual here. We gathered all the relevant internal teams, and I have a list, so I'm going to read a little bit, which include our BST operational team, our port environmental compliance teams that manage our programs for various initiatives, such as Green Marine, which you've had introductions to, and the port sustainability goals, as well as our engineering team for structural assessments. So all of these teams provide sort of input and questions that our then real estate team, as they go out and try to recruit or answer customer inquiries, can consider those factors. So starts with a customer inquiry, or maybe our business development goes out and starts recruiting business. So we start there. They take all of those questions that we've already provided to them, and they ask and they work with Granite or whatever other business they're talking with. Comes back internally, the environmental team takes a look at all those answers. Yep, looks like we can do it. Then the operations team, these happen in tandem. It's not necessarily in this exact order for the internal review. The operational team takes a look. Can we support this? Okay, looks like we can. So then we talk about how are we going to do commission updates and get you information, or stakeholder updates. And then the final process would be obviously a lease and execution of the contract. That being said, not every cargo that comes into the port will require a land lease. This one in particular does. So there's a bit of a variation about how we would do that process, but in general, this is the process. So now I can speak more directly to Granite. So that's what we did here. The inquiry came in, Matt started talking to Granite. We said, okay, let's go out and take a look. And so we did in fact do that. We invited commissioners to go out, and we did 4 visits to their sites, 2 in Everson, 2 in Everett, and took our operational team, our environmental team, our business development, asked questions, and got an understanding of what it looked like on the ground. Okay, so for them, it's six months or more, probably, of due diligence working with these folks. And with your direction, have been providing information in different venues, hoping that offers community transparency and the ability for folks to ask questions. And then, obviously, the next bullet, those are the site visits that we did where we observed operations, equipment, and noise from their activity. So now I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who will talk about the environmental portion.
Great. Thanks, Tiffany. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowan, Director, Environmental and Planning Services. So I've just got a few bullet points here. Just wanted to review things that we had heard from the Commission that we wanted to make sure as we're looking at cargo or customers that we had vetted or had a chance to kind of dive a little bit deeper into. So kind of wanted to go through some of those and where we're at, and some of the things we also just heard from the community. And again, as Tiffany mentioned, we're trying to be as transparent as we can on these projects and provide information in an open setting. So yeah, we've done a lot of coordination with the Granite team. One of the things we've got is analytical data from the source rock material that's coming out from the quarry that James showed. It's got low or no non-detect of any kind of metals or contaminants or anything. It's a source rock. It's a native rock that is clean. It's intended for customer use in gardens, in projects, in roadways, in the public use. So it's an imported material that's a product, and we have analytical data on that. So that's really reassuring. We've reviewed with Granite and with our team stormwater management options and the permit requirements that may or may not apply in these different settings. Very similar to any cargo that we have that comes through the Bellingham Shipping Terminal, our Industrial Stormwater General Permit, or our ISGP. That will be covered the BST. We heard a detailed stormwater update a couple of meetings ago from our environmental team. And that would apply here. We've also then met with the Department of Ecology's water quality team multiple times about this potential operation at the Bellingham Shipping Terminal and within the Log Pond area, which is covered under our ASB individual permit. And we heard this week that Ecology agrees that these types of operations are already included and covered under our existing ASB permit. So that's really reassuring. Added to that, Granite is clearly very well versed in stormwater permits. As James mentioned, they have a number of permits for their projects, for their quarries, sand and gravel permits. They're on the Ecology Advisory Board for the sand and gravel permit renewal. So very well versed, and we're speaking the same language all the time when we meet and when we meet the Department of Ecology, and that came through very, very clearly in our meetings that we've had so far. So a few other things just on this slide that we've also kind of looked at. You know, there was questions about dust in the waterfront from previous tenants. You know, we've looked at this material, and you saw in the video, it's really not a dusty material. Commissioner Briscoe, you asked the same question. It's a fractured hard rock that is, during that process, some of that is washed, and it doesn't produce a fine grain or a dusty material. Seeing the offloading in that video, you can see there's no dust and no dust sources from that. There'll be a variety of different sizes of that, so there could be a very small amount, but again, going back to that analytical data that we have on the source rock, it's really not a hazardous material or anything like that people would need to be worried about. But the visits that we saw, I saw little to no dust production off of the aggregate material. And then again, like I said, it's intended for a commercial retail product. One of the questions, obviously, people have brought up is noise and noise at the terminal. This material will be offloaded from a barge, from a single front loader into a hopper with an electric motor and a covered conveyor system. You heard the sound on that video. It's a very low hum, and it's not a large metal being dropped into an empty hold of a large ship. You know, this is a much different scale of the things that we've seen that people might be concerned about. But again, we want to be clear that we are thinking about that and taking those things into consideration. It's probably similar noise levels as to what we already see when the large boulders that we have that are dropped off that are going onto a barge and then out. Different mechanism, but same type of kind of barge operations that are very low noise levels. Hours of operations, you know, I would defer a little bit more to Granite on this once they get up and running, but generally this is like a 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. type of operation for both offload and the yard operations. There may be projects that, if there's a WashDOT road project that needs to have aggregate delivered in the middle of the night, you know, they'll probably be maybe loading a truck or two for that type of project, but only on a very rare basis. So for the most part, it's going to be normal working business hours. And then again, in the land use side of things, you know, there were questions on whether or not these types of operations are allowed in the waterfront district, and this fits solely within what was anticipated in the master plan and the sub-area plan. It's in the industrial mixed-use zoning area. It's allowed and anticipated. It falls right under this is language right out of the code, is it's wholesaling freight operations, water-dependent barge loading and facility in a cargo terminal. So all these things are things that we've made sure we've looked at, so there's no surprises. Trying to put it out there, so if there's any other questions on that or anything we need to dig deeper into, we're happy to do that as well. So that's just a little bit of the vetting that we did, so I wanted to highlight that, and then happy to address any questions at the back end here. So I think from there I'll turn it back over to Elliot for the lease discussions.
Thank you, Brian. Always better when we work these projects together, so appreciate it. I'll stay on this slide only briefly, but maybe come back to it in a moment. I'd like to first remind that we're not asking for any actions this evening. Over the course of the last year, the commission has been quite clear that you'd like us to introduce potential tenants, talk about how they would fit into our community for labor and for compatibility. And we're attempting to do that, which is why we have only an introduction tonight and a talk about what we're proposing, what we've done for due diligence, including with some of you on some occasions, and then move forward at a different meeting after there's been ample opportunity for public input. This operation, if you can see my mouse up there, the idea would be that a barge would come in with aggregate material. It would pull up along Warehouse 1. It would then be unloaded by conveyor belt, and in an effort to keep noise and dust down and to stay inside of our stormwater systems that are already in place, that conveyor would pass through the warehouse, out the other side, and into this proposed lease area. The red line you see there is simply the route for vehicles to come in and out of that site. And I can come back to this if anyone wants to look at it again, but we have had a discussion about how a business relationship could work between Granite and the Port of Bellingham. And as we move to put a lease together that we would submit to commission for your approval, these are the kind of terms that we would expect to see in there. About a five-year lease term with mutually approved extensions thereafter, and in that both the port and the tenant would have to say they agreed to extend further than 5 years. The land involved would be about 5 acres of land in the cargo support area, and I'll just go back and point again to that spot, if I can get the lease or the mouse going here. So that's in this area. That's leased. The area over here is the shipping terminal area. That's not exclusively theirs. It's for all users of the port there, if I've stated that correctly, Tiffany. Depending upon the pace the commission wishes to take this, there could be a commencement date of a lease as soon as February 1st, but we obviously have to put a lease forward to you for your consideration before that date. Use of the premises under this lease would be to import and export via barge, convey, store, and distribute aggregate materials. Very similar, if not exactly, the photographs that James was showing in his introduction of Granite. We expect about 13 full-time employees, some transport personnel, and approximately 192 ILWU shifts per year. The estimated economic impact of this to the port, i.e. to port revenues, depending upon the number of barges that come in a given year, would be somewhere between $350,000 and $500,000 a year. Good, steady base revenue generating activity. Yeah, that's the general picture we have at the moment. We look forward to your questions and feedback on that, as well as from the community at large. Next steps we would anticipate here would be to present a lease for commission consideration in one of the 2 January commission meetings, depending upon your feedback this evening. Again, Granite operations could begin as early as February 1st, depending upon the pace at which we move. With commission approval, that will kick off some investment activity on the site, probably about $1.5 million in conveyors, in hoppers, in a payloader. It's not a big construction project, but we want to make sure that that's installed correctly and with the lowest possible disruption. proposed activity at this point it depends a little bit on market conditions, but we think it's approximately 3 barges a month once the business is fully operational. So that means a barge comes in, it gets emptied, moved on the conveyor to shore, and thereafter distributed to projects here in the county. That does not mean there's a barge there every single day. So 3 a month is, a good cadence, we believe. So with that, I would actually see if you have any questions either for myself, Brian, Tiffany, or James from Granite, and we'd be happy to address either at this moment or come back to you if it's more complicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Commissioner Shepherd, are you ready?
Sure. Well, I just want to start off by really thanking Granite for being a good partner so far, and for our staff for really doing a thorough job with the presentation tonight. You've demonstrated a high degree of due diligence investigation into this product and a pretty robust engagement in the topic. I really appreciate you've taken kind of our feedback and really working on some lessons learned from our previous experiences to develop a better process for moving forward. So thank you for doing that, and I hope this continues to be a model that we replicate in the future for other potential tenants of this type. A few questions. Maybe first I'll start with the team from Granite. Just, tell us, our last tenant, ABC, didn't have a very robust experience with regulation or for stormwater monitoring in this state or this country. You guys are a company that has long roots here in Whatcom County and Washington as a whole. Just tell us a bit more about the types of permits you manage and if you have any significant stormwater concerns with this operation.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Steve Hitzel, Granite Construction, Environmental Manager. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys here today and present on this project. So in the state of Washington, we've got sites all over the state, 13 different asphalt plants, 20 some odd rock operations, and then, of course, our site in Canada as well. With those sites, we've got stormwater permits associated with all of them. The sand and gravel permit is the permit that's common for our operations in the state of Washington. We also have air permits as well, and then we also operate under land use permits with the counties and cities and localities that we operate in. So all of those run through me. I'm the one who is managing those sites so that we are compliant with those permits, training our personnel, working with them so that they know what to do day to day, what to look for. And in addition, just our goal is always being 100% compliant, working with our regulators, creating good relationships with our landowners, stakeholders, working with our communities and our counties. So kind of all across the board, we're keeping up on it. And it starts with our guys on the ground, and then also goes through our upper management as well.
Okay. Just given the nature of the product, I would, we've got a lot of background information about the product, its lack of metals or other concerns. I would just expect something like turbidity would be the one that kind of question mark moving forward, and something we would want to be looking at most closely. What do you guys do to ensure the greatest compatibility with the existing regulation around turbidity?
Yeah, so our sand and gravel permits cover that, and then we've got our SWIPs with all of our sites that cover our BMPs that are on site to manage things like turbidity, any sort of oil sheens on those as part of our daily observations. Here with this site, there's a great, I guess I call it a French drain is probably the best name for it, that you guys have installed here a couple years ago to help manage that sheet flow off of that part of the property. That I think is going to be a good asset for us to utilize here in the initial stage and deploying not booms but straw wattles and things like that to capture that turbidity before it goes out there, and then inspecting those and replacing those at a kind of constant intervals, so those remain effective. That's kind of our best defense against turbidity. In addition to that, we'll be out there with sweepers, so we'll be keeping the track out. At a minimum, it's nice when a site is paved because you're not really dealing with the gravel driving over it. That's our product, so we want to make sure that's in the trucks as opposed to going out on the road. So, we'll keep that on a constant schedule.
Let's see, a couple other questions here. Truck traffic. Not sure who would be best to address truck traffic. We have one truck route. We didn't create the truck route. We kind of have to live with the truck route we have. It's a product we're already using this material locally. It goes into, paving roads, construction projects, grading, house construction, business development, all sorts of products. It's coming in currently. This would be a little bit more of a concentration of one facility where trucks were coming in, loading up, and then leaving. How many trucks are we looking at, and is there anything we can do to mediate that congestion that might be experienced by regular residents in the community?
Yeah, I think you're probably looking, 25 to 50 trucks a day, coming in to pick up product. I guess one example I'd like to, point out is like, let's say, the city of Bellingham Public Works is replacing some drainage pipe or what in the streets here, right here in the city, and instead of going out to East County to pick up the backfill materials or borrow or crush material they need for the project, it'll be right here. So you're gonna cut out some of those lane miles that they're traveling across the county. What doesn't necessarily reduce the truck trip altogether? No, but I don't think you're gonna get away from that. It's you got to transport the materials to the job site, and that's just a given with any type of commerce that you're dealing with.
Let me see if I have any other questions here. I just, maybe before I turn it over, I think we've clearly recognized the importance of stormwater. The experience with ABC really highlighted both the importance of the process of vetting, which I think we've done a pretty thorough job. I got to visit both the Port of Everett site and the Everson site to hear mostly, to see the product and to just meet with you guys as representatives. It clearly fits much more aligned with that interest in cleaner and quieter that we've heard clearly from the community, and that other thing we've heard clearly from the community, that we want to maintain a working waterfront. And so, this product does seem to be much more compatible than what we had in the past. That idea about stormwater management is really important. I can see that your company does understand how to deal with stormwater. I think the ABC experience is a clear example of the port taking stormwater quite seriously and responding accordingly when there were clear needs to do something different. And so I do think there's been a learning process and something that we're really keeping our eye on going into the future. Maybe my last question for Elliot is, I see a 5-year lease here. That's quite a bit different than what we saw with ABC. What happens if a year out goes completely sideways from what we were expecting? Are there other points for us to reevaluate the process going forward?
Yeah, I would actually speak backwards for a moment. So you referenced the previous tenant on this site. We did have environmental safeguards and requirements in the lease. And when they failed to meet those and other expectations from the community, they were no longer operating here. So this lease will also be carefully reviewed by yourselves, by our environmental team, and by our outside attorneys, so that if my bodyguards back here misbehave, then we're going to hold them to account under that lease. So I would challenge you when we bring the lease, don't look at the synopsis. Take the long read. Couldn't be more than 72 pages long, something in that order. Go through and look at, and I can guide you through that as well as could our attorneys at CSD. Say, here are the things that they're held to account for, and in terms of environmental measurements, and here are the steps that the port would take if those measures weren't being made adequately. I think if we ever get to that point, then I've done my job incorrectly. They will have done their jobs incorrectly. And I think by staying on it, staying quite active with the environmental team, watching our stormwater, not just from this operation, but all operations at our terminal, I think we'll continue to see a good result. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe? Mike?
The mic, I got Mike over here. The product, I'm assuming most of it's going to be left on site till it's needed, or are you going to transport a lot of this to Everson?
No.
Or both?
No. It's not, yeah. Our ultimate goal would be to have it stockpiled at the site and put it right into a truck to be used.
Okay.
Routes here locally. I mean, that said, I think there could be some products that are taken to Everson, but I mean, we have aggregate there, right? So it would be more of like a specialty product that was
Okay.
maybe to meet the spec for the airport runway or, something like that that would, a tougher spec, or the mineral properties from the Canadian quarry better meet or provide a better product, that case. But in general, this is a site to sell the aggregate to the projects and to the public.
So right now, the bulk of your material that you guys sell to the people in Whatcom County, I'm assuming, is coming from Everson, or Everett, rather, not?
Yeah, the one of those photos that I showed is the Singer aggregate pit out on Everson Goshen Road.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of our 3 sites that we have right now, but it's one of our largest sites.
In Whatcom County?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have, as we said, we have operations elsewhere in Washington State, but we have 3 active sand and gravel mines here in Whatcom County.
So the stuff coming from Everett then is how much, what's the percentage of that usually you have to truck up here from down there? I guess what I'm getting at is
Everett or Everson?
Everett. Stuff coming up from Everett, what percentage does that make up of what's being used in Whatcom County from your pits?
Very, very, very little. I would be surprised of a handful of trucks that are coming from Everett. If anything, we're hauling sand from Singer down to the Everett asphalt plant on Smith Island, wash sand, just because we don't have a decent local source in Snohomish County.
Is that something you could load onto the barge for it going the other way?
Potentially could, but they're pretty rich in sand and gravel resources in British Columbia. So
Okay.
maybe, but this is more of an import play.
So I meant going to Everett. Could you load in Bellingham and send it to Everett?
Yeah, maybe.
Would that be cheaper than driving those trucks back and forth?
We'd have to sit down and look at the numbers, but potentially, I mean.
Just food for thought.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad idea. I mean.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Glad you've come and talked to us.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Anything going to the Everett Airport, we'd appreciate if you charge double. We have no interest in helping their economics.
Oh, do you mean the Everett Airport Painfield specifically?
Yeah, the one that stole a lot of our traffic from us. Not that I hold a grudge or anything. I'm curious about the number of jobs. You've got 13 local jobs, and then you said 19 ILW. I did the math. It works out to be about 19 a month of the ILWU.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We get that a lot of times. Anytime we're working on a project in the communities across the state, economic analysis and what's going to produce jobs, and it's a tricky question because the number could be a lot bigger. Granite employs estimators. We have paving crews. I have asphalt plant operators and loader operators and heavy equipment. We got, you account for the truck drivers that are moving the product off site. And then you got the laborers offloading, landing the barge. And you're going to have a guy on a loader on the barge. And then probably a ground guy that's, watching the conveyors and making sure the stacker's working right and all that. And then there's already a scale and a scale house here. So you would have individual operating the scale. We do a lot of remote scaling, so that person may not be on site every single day, but we have that capability to have the on site. And then you got an environmental manager, you got a sales manager, you got the construction materials manager that's looking over the business aspects of the job. So it's really more than those numbers you're seeing, but you put that number out there, it's like, well, all 19 guys aren't on site every single day. Mm-hmm. So there's some trickle down.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Having the schedule of barges that come through, given the schedule that you've talked about, is that going to preclude us from moving other barges in and out? Maybe this is a question for Matt or Tiff.
Commissioners, Matthew Kress, Business Development Manager. So we have a separate barge pier on the left side of the terminal, just south of the berth number 3, and where we have the projected where the Granite's activity will occur. That is that we've got some cleanup to do out there in the future as part of Whatcom Waterfront Phase 2. So that is the uncleaned up and undredged area. So it will not interfere with other ships because the ships are too deep to even go in that area. And so we do have another barge pier for other activity as well. So to answer your question, it's not going to impede any operations.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear. And then any retail on the site, or is it all going to be typically for construction?
No, ideally, yeah, there's retail. We want to be able to serve the public there, and if you come in with a
pickup truck,
dump trailer that we can sell you the products that you're looking for. Okay. That's one of the things we want to be able to bring, because this is a crushed material. It's a manufactured angular rock that's full fractured material, and a lot of the public wants to see round rock, cobble, drain rock, sand, pea gravel. So we will bring some of those materials to the site to be able to have a broader selection of materials for the public.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Thank you, Elliot, Tiff,
Thank
Matt,
you for your attention.
Brian. Okay, we're going to move to our consent agenda. Going to entertain a.
We got a duck.
Yeah, it's Carlberg. They are 13-0, so. All right, motion to approve the consent agenda, and anything you would like to discuss, Commissioner Shepard?
No, I'm okay. Go ahead.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I'm good.
I just had a couple of really quick ones. The first one is on the schedule for commission meetings. I'm just wondering, just from the staff perspective, does it create a hardship when we have a commission meeting immediately following a holiday?
We try to avoid that when we can, and I think we've pretty much done that. There's one case.
Two.
Is there two?
Yeah.
I thought there was one.
I'm just wondering if that's something we should, you had President's Day and Martin Luther King.
Yeah, we usually try to avoid the Memorial and and Labor Day. Those two aren't as big a holidays, so I think we're fine.
The other two were fine?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. And then the second one was, there was nothing in here to discuss what the personal services contract was with Jennifer Novak. And I just wanted to put some flesh on those bones and just let the public know that Jennifer has been a long-time business development expertise and a former employee of the port. And it's a $60,000 contract to retain for her to help us flesh out our business development plan. And I just wanted to make sure that that was out there.
She was instrumental in the county's comprehensive plan as well. In fact, she wrote the whole thing. So, yeah, she's well worth the money we pay her.
I just figured that needed some flesh on the bones. No action there, Tyler, thanks. Other than that, that's all I've got. Motion to approve the consent agenda. Commissioner Briscoe? Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
And Commissioner Bell is also a yes. We are now going to recess the public meeting and open the public hearing on increasing the number of port commissioners from 3 to 5. I have a list of attendees here, and I will read you off that list. I will say at the end of this, when we close the public hearing, we'll take a small recess just for 5 minutes because it's going to be a long meeting to allow anybody who doesn't want to stick around for the rest of the meeting to feel free to filter out. But let's start with Michael Czerkowski.
Would you kick that cap over to me? Thank you.
Did I say your name right? Did I even come close?
Yeah, you came very close. Thank you very much. My name is Michael Krastowski. I'm a board member of the South Hill Neighborhood Association and the South Hill representative to the Mayor's Neighborhood Advisory Commission, which is commonly called MNAC. I want to just add that I'm a graduate of the Coastal Geology program at Western Washington University. So I want to thank the Commission for what you oversee that adds to the recreational opportunities of our community. The walking venues at Squalicum Harbor, the Container Village, and the lovely charm of the Fairhaven Ferry Terminal are just a few of our waterfront treasures that are under your stewardship. I also want to thank the Port Commission for making this opportunity to consider a ballot measure to increase the commission by 2 additional members. I believe this is a prudent move and a timely move. I firmly believe that the voters will welcome such a ballot measure. Looking forward, I would like to recommend that these 2 new seats be promoted as at-large positions. This will add a new and valuable layer to the fabric of the commission. With 2 at-large positions, the Port Commission will consist of members who are district representatives as well as county-wide representatives. Thank you again for all that you do to make Bellingham and Whatcom County the very special place that it is, and I sincerely mean that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Hertz.
See if I can stand after sitting all that time. Thank you very much, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. I've had the opportunity to interact with the port for 57 years. First as the county park director for 10 years, mayor for 8 years, with the Trillium Corporation for 13 years, and my own company for over 20 years. And I've always found the port to be reliable and fair. And I'm not, anything I say is not against the 3 commissioners that I've worked with. Pete Zwanich, Todd Asmunson, Tom Glenn, goes back over the years. So what would we want to change? I think that basically my thinking is the complexity of the port, as well as the complexity of the county, demands more representation. And I would encourage you to put it on the ballot. Let's let the people of Whatcom County make that decision. The other thing perhaps I should say is that there's been many, many studies about what is the best governmental solution for public agencies, especially in the legislative branch, and it's been 5 members of the legislative branch. Not 7, not 3, not 12, not 13 like they have in Denver, but 5. And so, you know, putting five people on the commission, I think is going to make the community feel better. I think you're going to have a better representation of the thinking of the community. Thank you.
Doug Carlberg.
So I became a port customer 50 years ago, and about 20 years ago, I got involved in port politics. And at that point, the Bellingham Bay Foundation did a poll to see how much support the public had for the Port of Bellingham, and it was 11%. It was abysmal. And so I ran for a port commissioner. got involved in politics on the port side. And I ran a few years back, and I ended up getting quite a few votes, and to the point where my endorsement mattered. And I had to sit down with 4 people and decide what my decision was. I lost, but I had 18% of the vote, and everybody kind of needed some of those votes. And so I was going to get to make an endorsement, maybe make a difference in this Port Commission. And I've been very proud of the people that have been up here. From 11% to where it is today is a long ways. And you guys have got a few bumps and bruises. But at the end of the day, I decided to go ahead and endorse Michael Shepard and Ken Bell. And I did that for a reason. Because one of them leaned to the left, one of them leaned to the right, and I knew Mr. Briscoe was about as independent a cuss as they made. And the reason I did that is because I thought it was good for the community. I wanted the Democrats to have a voice, a strong voice. I wanted the Republicans to have a voice. And then I wanted the independents to have a voice too. And I think, you know, at one point the port was fighting with the mayor, themselves, their staff, their executive director, the public, and the Lummi Nation, all in 1 year. And look at what we've got for the last 8 years or however long it's been. Gentlemen, you guys have done one hell of a fine job. You got a couple bumps and bruises, but there's no perfect people. There's nobody we can hire that's not going to screw something up, Ken. I got you. Anyway, but I've watched this go through before, this 5-commissioner thing, and there's a hidden agenda with some people, and I think it's a bad agenda. And the hidden agenda is that the Democrats in Bellingham, which doesn't even have a Republican Party, would like to control the Port of Bellingham. It's a horrible idea. All that animosity that we went through for years with the Port of Bellingham is just going to come back, because you end up taking one group and shoving your opinion down their throat. Whereas if you got a good, balanced port, you don't have that. And that's the agenda with 5. Folks, I'm here to tell you I've watched this for decades. That's what the goal is. And it's not a goal that's going to serve us well. We want to hear everybody's voice. Everybody's voice. All 230,000 of them. If you don't believe me, when you're listening to the party, you know who you're not listening to? The citizens. And they're the boss. They're the owners. The 2 parties do not own the Port of Bellingham, and I don't want to see at any point that they do. Because you can look around this nation at this mess, this polarized mess, a lot of good people that get along with each other, go to basketball games together, and they get into this politics on red and blue, and they don't get a damn thing done. Nothing for us. So, it's been before the voters before. As soon as somebody has an opinion, has a decision out of the port that they don't like, they want to stuff the ballot box with 2 more commissioners they think will be their friends so that they can have their way. I think if the public is screaming for this, you should respond to the public, but nobody else. Don't listen to another damn person about this. If you can get from the public an overwhelming support that they want 5 commissioners, then it's your duty to put it on the ballot. But 200 noisy people or 500 noisy people in a county of 230,000 people is a hummingbird burp in the wind. That's all it is. Thank you.
The ever quotable Doug Carlberg.
Our poet laureate. Brian, sorry. Brian. I knew I saw you here. Mary, you're up next.
Commissioners, good to see y'all. And I'm Brian Sarney, Birchwood neighbor. And I would love to see 5 commissioners for a few different reasons. And but before I start into that, there's actually almost 4,000 humans on the Save the Waterfront, just so that you have an awareness, not 200. And I'm one of them. So, but aside from that, the community that I have been part of in listening to carefully, being part of the Save the Waterfront, I have heard from many about just a few years back when there was about to be 5 commissioners. I think it was Tip Johnson perhaps, that said it was literally a vote or two away from transpiring. And having never really been that political, and nor wanting to be, but wanting to have our community have a quality voice in all of what's going on. And I'm thrilled of all the learning that has been transpiring here with y'all. And thank you for all of that. And in this next process, I do hope that you choose to listen to what the community, Brian being a part of that, is asking. And, so thank you for your consideration in that. And one other aside, in big round numbers, the Granite concept at 8,000 tons per barge, that's 888 trucks at 18.5 tons each. That's almost 2,700 trucks in and out in a month. I'm not a rocket scientist, but in big round numbers, just so you have an awareness. Thank you.
Mary, I will want to ask you to keep your comments to the topic at hand. We will have another public comment period for any issues that are not part of the public comment period. Thank you. Mary?
Hi, my name's Mary.
Jim Kyle, you're next.
Pardon me?
Letting Jim know he's next.
Oh, okay. Mary Locum, member of the public, live in the York neighborhood, and I encourage you to put a ballot before us to see if people want 5 instead of 3. Thank you. And I'd also like to comment on that truck situation. So when will that happen?
That'll come, we'll have another public.
Okay.
Here.
Thank you.
We let the public speak before and after.
There's also a general public comment period after our meeting, after our regular business today. And so this one's focused on the 5 commissioners, but stick around for a little bit longer, or we're always open for a phone call.
The other reason we work well together is because I say something and then he actually tells you what I just said. He's much better at the English language than I ever thought of being.
Yeah, I just listen.
Jim Kyle, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jim Kyle,
Where's got you?
4102 Linnell Road, Van Zant. I find myself piggybacking on Doug Carlberg's comments earlier and just now. But unlike Doug, I'll be brief.
Are they always listening to you? Yes.
And I have no followers. So I hope you will put the 5-seat commission on the ballot and support its passage. First, I think you deserve accolades for the difficult decisions you have made. Unfortunately, not everyone agrees. The current level of distrust toward the port has the potential to make life difficult for future commissioners. So I hope you will put this on the ballot, support its passage, change the narrative, and make it even more obvious that increased public participation is more than welcome and even necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Atul Deshmani, and then Joy Gilfillan, you're next.
Thank you. I guess after my preceding speakers, I'm now the youth representation. Sorry. First thing I'd like to start with is a disclaimer. I am a PUD commissioner, but in no way is anybody at the PUD endorsing anything I'm about to say. But I thought I'd just share some experiences. So for me, I think that I'm only imagining at Whatcom PUD, because we also have 3 commissioners. It would have been very helpful for me to both express support and potentially alleviate conflict, to be able to just pick up the phone and call another commissioner. And there's many times where I felt like that would have been beneficial over the last 6 years. I also want to offer that there are PUDs in Washington State that have 5 commissioners. Most of them have 3, but there's several that have 5. And in discussing with commissions that are 5 PUD commissioners, what I've been told is that they really love that ability to pick up the phone and call colleague commissioners. Commissioners, for example, at Chelan PUD have said to me more than once, more than one commissioner said this, yeah, I don't know how you do it with 3. Regarding how the districts work, I think Mr. Carlberg and other people are making great points. I really don't have any opinion on that subject or think that my experience with the PUD Association has anything to offer. I think you just take time to investigate that and make that decision in a very responsible way. So that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you. Joy Giffelin. Mark, you're back up. Mark Sharon.
I'm Joy Gilfillan from Whatcom County. I live out on Graveline Road, and I absolutely support 5 commissioners. I think it's absolutely imperative, looking at forward 5 to 10 years, that we have 5 different points of view that we can speak to as an audience, and that we are allowed to speak to multiple people and at least have 2 of you to listen to any argument that's coming forward. Now, I say that for multiple reasons. One of them is, as you know, I've run for political office the last few years, as you guys might know, not everyone in the audience. But working with the law and justice system has really made me aware of how absolutely critical Whatcom County is to world commerce. And the Port of Bellingham is not just the Port of Bellingham, it's actually the Port of Whatcom County, because we also have Blaine, and we also have the airport, and we also have a lot of other transportation routes. So transportation in and out of Whatcom County is massively important. And if you look at the fact that we're cloistered in the watershed, the waterways coming into Whatcom County, the entire seaboard from the Pacific Ocean is actually directly, we have watershed coming down from our Whatcom County resource land, from Whatcom County from the east side, from the north, from the west. We come down and we surround a lot of the water in the Pacific Rim. And people are not thinking about Pacific Rim impact over the next 5 to 10 years. We are a major seaport. We're actually the largest port and transportation hub for the entire Pacific Ocean. Look from Alaska down to Patagonia, and that has open space and has lots of commerce coming through here. I ran the Port of Bodega Marina in Bodega Bay, California. I've never talked to most of you guys about that. I did that for a year. I've written the Fairhaven Task Force report that affected the Fairhaven terminal coming to Whatcom County. I've done multiple projects that involve international trade and commerce. And we have one heck of a tornado headed our way over the next 5 years because of international trade with Canada, with the ports, with air commerce, with homeland security issues and everything else. I highly recommend moving to 5 port commissioners absolutely as fast as possible, because the amount of stuff that you guys are going to have to face here is so big, it's going to wipe us out. And I knew Pete Swamish, Smith, all of these guys. I've been talking about this stuff for 20 to 25 years with the people who are on the port. And I just want to say thank you very much for the work you're doing. It's enormous, it's big, and you need a lot of brains on the throttle. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, and then George, you're next.
Okay. Good evening again, commissioners. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak again tonight. I really do thank all the people who have come out to speak about these issues, because they're very important, and to toot our own horn. I'm a Bellingham resident my entire life, except for my time in the service. I went to Western for my political science degree, and I focused on political philosophy for what that's worth, which is right now. So I think it is important that you just let the people decide whether we continue with 3 or 5 going forward, because you have made it so, with the 3 of you, a sharp, strong focus on your mandate as the port commissioners, and that has taken the port in all its functions in a much better direction than, say, previous commissions from where I stand. That's my personal view. So if there's more people up on the dais listening and helping make decisions, you'll all quibble and equivocate and eventually come to a decision that will hopefully be in the best interest of Whatcom County. What's really important with this is that those 2 extra seats follow the same rules for being decided as your 3 now are. Because if they are at-large seats, that could cause a odd concentration of democratic power within a very small community that tends to be loud and organized and not necessarily have all of our direction, all of our prosperity and hopes in mind. They have their own agendas. So let's please keep things democratic by not allowing the system to be gamed. Thank you so much.
George and then Todd, you're up.
Yes, George Dyson, 435 West Holly Street. And I've been coming, I've got to say 3 quick things. I've been coming to Port Commission meetings for 36 years. The first thing I want to say is I think you guys are the best commission we've had. And from my point of view, I'm on the sort of founding board of the Working Waterfront Coalition, but I'm speaking only for myself. We are going to, we want to sort of be a forum for information about this question, but we don't take a stand. But personally, I do. This is, I think, one of the first times in my life I disagreed with Doug Carlberg. So the one thing I want to say is that with 5 commissioners, it's just as easy to make good decisions, but it's a little slightly more difficult to make bad decisions with 5 commissioners. And that's the important, that's all you need to know. That's the important point. And all you need to do is put this before the public. Hopefully, they can make up their own mind. The last thing I want to say is that when we last considered this question was May 1st, 2012, and Harriet Spinell was sitting in that seat right there, and she is the person who wrote the legislation that makes this possible. She had a distinguished career, we would now call a data scientist, before she went into politics, and she was very much in favor of 5 commissioners, and I think we should have listened to her then, and we should listen to her now. Thank you.
I praise George. Thank you. Todd?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Todd Lagestein. I'm here as a private citizen. I live, work, and play in Bellingham. And recently, well, actually, first I want to address Mr. Carlberg. I appreciate your point, but I respectfully disagree with you, sir. So recently I had the opportunity to serve the citizens of Whatcom County as a Public Utility District Commissioner. I was an appointed elected official. So, but my interim appointment has ended and I'm back to being a regular Joe, so my comments are my own. But when I was on the PUD, like you all, we had a commission of 3. And as you know, that makes it difficult and time-consuming for commissioners to bring forward their own new ideas. And it makes you more reliant on staff. And I'm not going to go into the conflicts that can be there between commission and staff, but that is something that is there. Moving from 3 to 5 commissioners doesn't actually decrease transparency. All actions are still done publicly, but it would increase efficiency, especially for new ideas and actions and plans from commissioners. You'd be able to bounce an idea off of somebody else that is going to be directly voting on that, have collaboration, and that wouldn't get in the way. I would take this opportunity to remind the commission that in 2017, the commission that was here, and Mr. Briscoe was on there, Commissioner Briscoe was on there, they did take action that was not supported by the executive director at the time. Commissioner Briscoe showed true leadership by looking at the whole situation and, along with Commissioner Mike McCauley, voted to move the airport firefighters into the state firefighter retirement system. That's true leadership. So there is a precedent for the commission taking bold action to do the right thing and lead the way. And lastly, I've heard a few considerations about the port's finances and whether or not they could afford to do this. So taking a look at the port's finances, in 2015, the net position, this is from the audited reports, the CAFRs or ACFRs as they're called. 2015, the net position of the port was $227.7 million. The The revenue minus its expenses was a positive 13.5 million. In 2019, it was 266 million with a positive 15.7 million revenue minus its expenses. And in 2023, the net position of the port was 298 million, 0.9 million, and revenue minus expenses of 21.7 million. I also sit on a credit union board of directors. So I have a little bit of experience in looking at it. We have a total assets of about $400 million of member assets that I'm responsible for with the fiduciary responsibility. So I think it's fair to say that any increases that the port would have for putting this on the ballot or for increased commission expenses would be referred to as budget dust. So I hope you'll consider that and show bold leadership and move to at least put it on the ballot. Thanks.
Thank you. That completes the list that I have in front of me. If anyone else wishes to speak to this issue, public hearing is still open. And please, Joe, just give us your name, and when you come to the mic,
Joe
just give us your name.
Schmidt, 830 East Douglas. I'm speaking against it. I think it just brings more, we need less government, not more government. And anytime you add more people to a committee or a commission, it just adds more time and more confusion. I think it would be more streamlined to have 3 instead of 5. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Diane Kitchen. I'm a board member of the Cordata Neighborhood Association. I don't know if you guys know or if everyone else knows. We're the biggest neighborhood association in Bellingham, the fastest growing. And and I've seen that neighborhood grow. I've lived there for over 20 years. I've also grew up out in the county. I'm a lifelong resident of Whatcom County. I've seen the county grow. And with that, I've seen how the jobs on the waterfront have came and gone, businesses have came and gone. It's actually one of my first jobs out of high school was working at one of the fisheries, working on the bandsaw, working with the halibut. So I do have experience working down at the harbor. And so just with that, just knowing some of my background, I'm for the growth. I think growing it to 5 will be beneficial. Whenever we have more voices to be able to bounce ideas, communicate with each other, just in general, having those 2 extra voices, I think is way, way more beneficial than leaving it as 2. I know it's been a topic that's been discussed for years and years and years. I don't understand why it just never has gone through. So it's like, to that point, it's like, okay, we've talked about it year after year after year. It keeps coming up. Now let's just get it over with. Bring it out to the voters. None of this back and forth. It's time to just get it out there and then figure out, have the voters have the final say. So, thank you.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Bob. While I absolutely agree that less government is generally a good thing, the problem here is there's an idiosyncratic aspect to this, as I understand it, whereas with 3 commissioners here, you're unable to speak to each other outside of office hours, which seems to me does not streamline anything, but actually has a limit and makes decision-making more complicated. So if indeed you could take these 3 commissioners and change that rule and have people speak outside, I think that would be okay. But since you can't, I think 5 commissioners and the ability to talk outside of school time would be a good thing. Thanks.
Bob, what's your last name?
Sorry, Peskovitz. Thanks.
Can you spell that? Because I'm not even going to come close.
Yeah, I'll do that 3 letters at a time. I'm used to this. Pescovitz. Thanks.
Oh, just like it sounds. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak to this issue, public hearing? Anybody online? Nobody online? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing on the issue of moving commissioners from 3 to 5 and reconvene the regular commission meeting. And before we go into action items, we'll let you filter out. I did have one more thing to say on this, and that is there was a couple of statements made about at-large seats. I just wanted it to be transparent that every voter that Port Commissioners represent everybody who pays taxes. So every one of us is a county-wide vote. So when it comes to an at-large seat, Port Commissioners are required to be elected by anyone who would pay a tax for that jurisdiction. So therefore, all of us are elected county-wide in the general election, because that's just the way it has to be. So I just wanted to make sure that was clarified. At the end of the day, we do get elected by our districts, but we all have to be elected by the entire body that pays taxes into this jurisdiction. With that, we're going to close the public hearing, move to the open session, and we're going to take a 10-minute recess and reconvene. Thank you. Okay, we're going to reconvene the meeting, Port Commission for December 17th. And go to our action items. First one is a motion to appoint commission officers and serve as president, vice president, secretary for the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners for the 2025 calendar year. I will yield to my fellow commissioners to see what the flavor of the day looks like.
Well, I'll start it out. I'd like to keep the rotation as we've always had it, so that would be my turn, would be up next, correct?
Correct.
Am I correct in that? So that's my position.
Yeah, I can never remember where we are in our rotation, but I do want to stay with our rotation.
And I will concur. So that would make it what?
Bobby becomes president, you become whatever Michael is now, and Michael becomes whatever Bobby is now.
Vice secretary.
There you go.
So Bobby Briscoe, president, Ken Bell, vice president, and secretary Michael Shepard. The motion is that.
I agree.
Commissioner Shepard?
Are we doing discussion or are we voting?
Oh, would you like to discuss further?
No.
Then we're voting.
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is yes. 3 yeses.
We've all got too much hair for the Larry Moe and Curly thing, okay?
Motion to appoint the following Port of Bellingham commissioners to serve as the trustee of board members for the following organizations: Council of Government, Public WPPA, Public Ports Association, Whatcom County Economic Development Investments.
So all other boards, we typically ask the commission president to serve. And these are the 3 boards we like to have appointed, or these organizations require we have someone appointed. Last year, Bobby Briscoe was the primary for COG. Commissioner Shepard was the alternate. Commissioner Bell was the primary for WPPA. Commissioner Briscoe was the alternate. And Commissioner Bell was the trustee for the Washington County Economic Development Investment Board. And Commissioner Briscoe was the alternate.
And so would you say we like to have the president be?
Anything not on these 3 lists, we typically ask the president to serve on, but these 3 organizations require we appoint someone.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
Everybody want to stay where they're at? Discussion, everybody want to stay where they're at? Keep things
Yeah, I kind of like the way it
current,
is.
or
We did that last time. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so it would stay the same, and that would be Commissioner Briscoe would be Whatcom Council of Governments, Commissioner Bell would be WPPA, and Commissioner Bell would be County Economic Development, and all the others would stay the same. So moved. Any discussion?
None.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Motion to adopt the Ports Air Service Incentive Program and authorize the Executive Director to implement the program, and we have Aaron Collins to discuss that.
This is like 3 pages. Never seen a 3-pager.
3-page.
How are we doing, commissioners? My name is Aaron Collins. I'm the senior manager at Bellingham International Airport. And talk a little bit about airports, finally. Today we're going to talk about the Air Service Incentive Program. We did want our consultant to come out, Mr. Jack Penning with Valair Aviation, but he had another commitment. So you have me to walk you through this newly developed incentive program. So first off, what is an incentive program? It's basically a program that's incentive-based that establishes additional air service for the airport. Now, this isn't just new airlines, this is also new routes. So our existing carriers can also take advantage of this. It's important to note that this program also aligns with the FAA policy regarding air carrier incentive programs. They're very restrictive on how we use our revenue, but there are caveats. We can provide user fees for free for a determined amount of time. We can also provide marketing money for a determined amount of time. However, there are some restrictions as well. One of those is we can't be discriminatory. Meaning, if we have an airline come in and they say, hey, we want to go to Oahu, and we say, that's a great idea, use the program. But if we have another airline come in and they say, we want to go to Des Moines, Iowa, they still can use this program. We cannot discriminate on airlines or routes through this program. If that makes sense to everybody. We'll do a few definitions because we have quite a few segments in the commercial air carrier categories that we're going to discuss today. One is a Part 121. What is that? It's basically a scheduled air carrier. It's your Alaska, your Allegiance, your Air Canadas, your Qantas Air. It's the big meat and potatoes of air carrier out there. Part 380, this is also in the incentive program. What is this? It's a public charter. I want you to think of Sun Country or Swift or a casino package or a resort package where the resort sells all the tickets on the aircraft and it gets them to that destination. That's what a Part 380 is. And then finally we have the Part 135. That's an air taxi. So we have San Juan Airlines at our airport. Down south they have Kenmore Air. And that's what that is as well. So these three segments of the commercial industry are in this incentive program. Does that make sense? Any questions? All right. So first, let's start with the meat and potatoes. As we talked about, the Part 121 or the scheduled commercial service. In order for them to be eligible for this incentive program, they need to operate at least twice a week for year-round service or seasonal service. And if they do operate twice a week, we will waive 100% of their common use terminal, landing fees, and aircraft parking fees for 2 years. That's that determined amount of time that the FAA is restrictive on. We're also looking at providing marketing money. For the year-round service, we're looking at $100,000 in cash for the first year. For the second year, it'll be $75,000 in cash for a max of $175,000. For the seasonal, it's $50,000. $35,000 and $25,000 in the third season or the third year. So as you can see on the seasonal service, we spread it out over 3 years. It's important to note that the total marketing available is $460,000. So once that money is allocated to these new routes, to these new airlines, it then will expire. The program will still stand alone, but the 121 money will be gone.
Can you describe for me what that marketing looks like?
The marketing, that's a good question, Commissioner. The marketing is something brought to us by the airline. The port and the airline work together to market those routes, and then we approve it. Because as I said, we have to follow that FAA guidance. So they can't just market Qantas Air. They need to market that route in locations that we see.
But what form does that take? Does that take print?
Print, digital, we've done this in the past, primarily after that Canadian market and then down south at that Everett market to steal some of that Payne Field traffic and that SeaTac traffic. So we have done that in the past. Billboards across the board.
I got a question.
Shoot. Yes, sir.
What about seat guaranteeing? Do we deal with any of that? I mean, like, we want somebody to go a route, don't we have to guarantee so many seats?
So minimum revenue guarantees, MRGs as they're called, often referred to as seat guarantees, are definitely something we're going to look at in the future. That's not part of this program. Some airlines like to do them and other airlines don't, so it's kind of airline specific. But we have been talking with our consultant and internally, we've been talking about MRGs, and we're going to continue that.
Yeah, because I get a lot of questions when we're not taking a route somewhere, and I said, well, if we ask for a particular route, I said, it's my understanding that we would have to guarantee so many seats.
And you can't use airport funds to do that. So typically you have to go get community-type raised funds to put together an MRG package, and that requires the support of local businesses that know they're going to fly a lot and use that route. So it's more than just a port effort. It's going to be a full community-based effort involving tourism and some businesses.
Thanks.
Yeah, Rob was spot on that. You know, we can't use the airport revenue, but there are a lot of airports that are very successful with those minimum revenue guarantees, as long as you have that community support. The Part 380, this is the public charter. Remember our casino flights and our resort flights. For year-round, we're waiving the fees once again for 2 years. For seasonal service, we're waiving it for 3 seasons. For the marketing cash, it's much more reduced because the return on the investment is reduced as well. It's $15,000 in cash for the first year, $75,000 for the second. The seasonal is spaced over 3 years at $7,500, $5K, and $25,000 for the third. Our cap, the market cap on that is $60,000. Once that's gone, that program will expire as well.
And how long of a time period would that expire in? So if that...
That's a good question. So if we have one route tomorrow on round trip service, you know, for twice a week, we'll spend $175,000. 2 years later, we get another one. That pulls out of that same pot of money. And until it expires, and then it will not, you know, we can't stand it back up until we readdress this program.
And are we limited in how soon we can readdress it? Because we last saw this like 5 years ago, I'm feeling like. We haven't re-upped this fund.
Yeah, that incentive program was quite a bit different. That required a marketing money match, and so the airline had to put money into that as well. And so we would match the 100K for 100K for that marketing strategy. It also was based on the seats. So the first year we were giving them $4 per seat, second year $2 per seat. This is a much simpler formula for them to execute.
And so we, at our discretion, we could reevaluate and re-up that $475,000 of total
Absolutely.
availability. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on it. I'll trust that you'll come back and let us know how,
Absolutely.
how effective it is, and we'll all just be hoping that it materializes and gets what we want. Okay.
Good. The final part of this is the Part 135 air taxi. It's a bit unusual to put these into an incentive program. These are usually smaller aircraft, smaller routes, smaller number of passengers. But in the airport industry, we are seeing a trend of where 135 want to come into the commercial terminal to provide a connection to commercial aircraft, and then provide that service to their customer. So we are going to do that this time around. And what we're going to do here is just basically waive their user fees. So once again, the common use terminal, the landing fees, and the aircraft parking overnight fees. 2 years for the annual, and then again 3 years for the seasonal. But there will be no market money attached to that, to the 135.
So all the parking fees you're referring to are for the planes then, not people parking cars?
Absolutely, just the aircraft for the
Okay.
remain overnight fees. Yep.
And so that, the 135 is where we were just at WPPA, and there was a presentation on EV air taxi service, kind of community EV air taxi service, short haul, EV base, some of the like vertical lift. And this would potentially incentivize that market that may be developing. There's people, who are in this industry are thinking this is going to be developing and literally taking off for us. And we would like to be a part of it as it does.
Absolutely, yeah, we're trying to stay ahead of this a little bit. But there are single prop planes that are doing it as well. But as far as the VTOL, yes, that could be down the future or in the future. There are quite a few hoops for those 135 carriers to operate our commercial terminal. Quite a few security requirements, inspection of their aircraft, that sort of thing. So, the right of entry or the cost of entering that market into the commercial terminal is substantial for that carrier.
Yeah. How far out are we from needing EV charging capacity at the airport? Is it?
That's a good
be
question.
Ready when somebody asks, and we don't want somebody to say no to our airport because we don't have that capability. And so how burdensome is it in terms of regulatory process to work with the FAA to get that put in place for us to respond when we have a customer that's interested?
Well, as far as the FAA is concerned, that is not an eligible grant expenditure, so that would have to come out of the airport's pocket or the port's pocket on that. So yeah, that would be substantial. We need quite a bit of infrastructure upgrades, I would imagine, at the terminal, but I'd have to explore that for you, Commissioner.
I think it's something good for us to be ahead of. If this is going to be a 5-year timeline from idea to execution and $500,000, it would be useful to know, and just to understand how much approval process and bureaucracy the FAA is going to drive around. I understand they were not going to fund it, but how supportive or burdensome are they going to be to see it permitted?
Right. From an airport perspective, be very small burden on that. But more where the VTOLs are going so they can take off in the community, so they can take off and land in your parking lot or, in your backyard, that sort of thing. That's where the regulatory issues are going to arise. That's what we're seeing. But at the airport, it'll be no issue at all. They'll just be another aviation user at the airport.
When you go through these 3 programs, you've outlined the costs pretty well, but what's your expectation of outcome in each one of those areas? Do you intend to, what do you expect to see at the end of the day?
That's a good question.
An
Yeah,
increase?
On the Part 121, we have to be aggressive, right? I mean, we saw Southwest have left the market. We need to have something out there we can take to our airline partners and say, hey, open up new routes here. You know, we can access this incentive program. Now we can go out to the other airlines and put this on their desk as well. We have to be aggressive. I'm optimistic. It's a very robust program, and it's simple for them as well.
And that one makes a lot of sense to me. I'm just wondering what the outcome is for the other two.
For the other two,
Are we having trouble attracting the other two types of service to the airport? Is this going to have a dramatic shift in the volume that we receive?
not in the other two categories, I wouldn't think. I would like to see more Part 380s come in, but last year alone we had 5 Sun Countries come in.
So why do it?
Because we need to increase our aeronautical activity at the airport with every single avenue that we can think of.
You think we will with that incentive program?
The why do it is because if it doesn't happen, it doesn't cost us anything. If it does happen, we're happy it did, and it cost us something. And the Part 135 air taxis, as Aaron mentioned, we think there's some future growth there. I think Mr. Shepard just said that WPPA talked about that future growth. So it's a new program for us because it's a new program altogether, and we just want to see what's out there.
I'd just like to see what we expect to gain from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unknown. We want as much as our, I think it's.
I guess we don't lose anything from it.
No, and it's clearly on community's mind. The community has clearly seen the reduction in service with Southwest, and it smarts for people. So they're wanting us to be taking aggressive steps to attract other airline partners with whatever tools we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is some of the tools we have available to us.
And so go back to the last slide. So really the 380 with 5 planes basically coming in, what we're foregoing here is new tenants coming in would receive this benefit, but do the 5 that are currently coming in receive this benefit? They're already there.
If they expanded.
They are, but if they expand routes, then it will be eligible. So if they decide to do a Cabo trip or whatever it may be, yes, absolutely.
But it's not waived for the current flights.
No, it's not.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about these MRG. Did I get the acronym right?
You did.
Does that have to be backed by kind of port funds, or could we back that with public funds that are non-airport
It can
related?
be anything but airport revenues. So just about anything but airport revenues is eligible to do that. So we could use general port funds to do it. We could use economic development funds, tourism funds, local business funds that get put together for this purpose. Communities that really have made it work have had really high participation by the business community. They've come in and they've established these funds to guarantee the seats on the airlines.
I'm glad you said EDI, because that's where I was trying to think. I think it's a good role for EDI potentially to play as, we're asking them to essentially back.
Yeah, I should clarify that. The FAA would allow EDI funds. The EDI may not allow that use. Right, so the FAA looks at it and says, okay, you can't use airport funds, but you can use whatever else you want. And if you got EDI money, the county would be fine. I mean, FAA would be fine with that use. The county may not be fine with that use. That may not be considered a legal use by the county of EDI funds.
Be interesting to determine, because we could, I think, make a clear benefit for economic development countywide, and it'd be nice to have a source of funds that would be a backing for an initiative like this. So
My take is if we had a carrier that came to us with a serious route, that would be something we could actually test those waters at that time.
yeah, it's one of those. You build it and it comes, or you incentivize it and it comes. I don't know which comes first, chicken or egg on this one.
We'll go sell the route and see what we need to, Mr. Briscoe?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so the motion is to adopt the Ports Air Service Incentive Program and authorize the Executive Director to implement the program. Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is a yes.
Before we go to the next, So we mentioned Southwest Airlines leaving. Could we clarify why they left? Because there's a lot of people who believe the port actually did something to make them leave, and that's not the case.
Whether we have control over bringing them back.
Yeah, Southwest was pretty happy with BLI in my conversations with them. They liked Bellingham. They liked the load factors they got on their planes. I think they were a little disappointed in the rate they got. But the predominant reason they left was because they didn't have enough planes. And they told us that they were going to end 2025 with less planes than they started 2024. So in a 2-year period of time, they had to retire so many planes, and they were not getting deliveries of enough to make up for the retirement amount. So they were going to have less planes than they started with, which means they had to reduce routes, which they did so in 5 or 6 different airports. They've also drastically restructured the company, how they're selling tickets, what their business model is. They've got a lot of changes going afoot, and we just happen to get caught up in that.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the interesting things is they, instead of waiting in line for your seat, they now let you pick your seat as of April or May of this year, I think, is part of that business strategy. And they realize the value of first-class seating. All right, next item is authorize the executive director to execute a revocable right of entry, ROE, permit for the Federal Aviation Administration. And Aaron, you're still up.
You still got me. Let's talk really quick about the right of entry permit, a little background. In 2023, the FAA came to the port and said that we were eligible for a replacement air traffic control tower through the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, 100% funded by the FAA. Since that time, we've been out looking at all the property on the airport, finding suitable spots for this new tower. We can't put it in the same spot. We have collaborated with the FAA and port team, and we've come up with one preferred location. It's called spot number 5. What this right of entry will do is it'll allow for them to enter the premises and look for obstruction evaluation, security assessment, and an environmental review, and evaluate the potential construction on that site. This agreement will go for 36 months or until that site has been selected. Once that has been selected, then we'll enter into an MOU with the FAA for building that property, and then we'll move down that road. But this is just the very first step in that process for a new air traffic control tower. This has also been vetted by Port Council. They've looked at it for indemnification and the port's needs, so this has been looked through.
Commissioner Briscoe?
I have any questions.
Mr. Shepard?
How much does a new tower cost?
That's a great question. It depends how tall it's going to be, right, Rob?
A wide variance on cost.
It is a big variance because they're trying to figure out what the height is, and it's plus or minus 20, 30 feet. Makes a huge difference in the cost. What you don't want to see is pictures of the building.
Oh, not so pretty.
I think it looks great, Rob.
We've got the benefit of having the map in front of us, but can you verbally describe where that Area 5 is?
Yeah, our preferred site location is off Mitchell Way, just south of West Bakerview Road. So there's an empty parcel there, right adjacent to the new hangar complex, the Alpha Air Park that just went up.
If you're driving in the airport on the main street, as you get to Woodstone, right to the left there. If you were to go to the ARF station, it's right on that corner.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we're still hoping it contains radar.
It looks like airport surveillance radar is off the table, right? But there's a lot of new technology out there for situational awareness, other things that they can put in there. It will no longer look like a 57 Chevy, as Commissioner Bell always says, so they're going to upgrade those steam gauges and everything else up there. So it'll have quite a bit of technology. It'll be a much safer airport to arrive and depart in, especially during inclement weather. It's a win-win all the way around. And again, it's 100% funded by the FAA. We will have to cover our own lines going in and out for the emergency crash phone, and then removing line of sight obstructions. But that'll be basically most of it.
So you said it was at Mitchell Way?
I could pull up Google if you want.
Yeah, why don't you do that? It's right here, that corner. So there's Woodstone. There's the ARF. It's in that corner right there. So see that piece of grass?
Some of those trees come down.
Watch it, these trees have to come down.
Yeah. That'll make some of the...
Are we on? There we go. So this is an empty lot. And so there will be some wetland mitigation. They need to remove some trees out of there as well, but that is on the FAA's dime. And then there'll be line of sight issues we need to work on to the south of that tower.
What's the timing again?
The timing, they want to have these going and completed by 2030. Very ambitious since we're here at 2025, so we'll see. But we're number 2 on the list in the nation, so we're right there.
What happened to across the airfield on the other side? I thought the last time we talked, that was expensive.
The cost just got too expensive because you had to bring infrastructure in, roads in. So basically, they looked at us and said, "Do you guys want a new tower or not?" Because we were really fighting hard to get the other side done, and they were going to say no tower. So we compromised and found this location for the tower.
So the line of sight thing here, taking down all the trees and mitigating, whose bill is that?
It's our bill for the trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be a fair amount.
Well, not even close to what the runway, what a road and utilities would have cost. But yeah, it's not going to be cheap.
Seems like a goofy place to put a tower.
It's actually got pretty good visibility with the exception of that kind of south, I guess it's southwest.
All right.
We do have a few other options if you'd like to meet with Rob. He can walk you through them.
No, I was curious. I thought at one point we were pretty insistent on being across the runways to the west.
That was the port school. That wasn't the FAA's.
Right.
Okay.
We tried.
All right.
And it is their money.
It is their money.
Okay, authorize the executive director to execute a revocable right of entry permit with the Federal Aviation Administration. Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
Also, yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Next, Tyler, get ready. Authorize the executive director to sign an interlocal agreement with the city of Bellingham and Whatcom County regarding the regional economic partnership.
Yeah, good evening, Commission. Tyler Schroeder, Director of Economic Development. We're here for an interlocal agreement with the county and the city of Bellingham in regards to the regional economic partnership. Think back to the Tri-Funder Agreement. We've had the Tri-Funder Agreement since 2012, maybe a little bit beyond. There's been a couple of different iterations back in 2018. The county decided to fund the economic development efforts a little bit more through the Economic Development Investment Fund, the EDI fund. That's led to the Port of Bellingham being the ADO, the Associate Development Organization, which is recognized by the state through commerce to do the economic development strategies. This interlocal has been approved by the county, has been approved from the city of Bellingham, and looking forward for the Port Commission's approval tonight. One of the biggest increases to this is additional revenue from the county, which is really being passed through to the SBDC contract that was approved in the consent agenda. Dr. Deck had some additional work for the SBDC that's been really well recognized and the work associated with it. And so the county has been able to pass some additional EDI dollars through that we then, of course, have the contract with SBDC to carry that work out. Really, this is to continue our work to enhance critical infrastructure that promotes sustainable economic development, looks to the resiliency, develop a skilled workforce, expand the education attainment, create the dynamic relationships that we're working to do every day, and cultivate an economy that values diversity, equity, and inclusion, and overall support of the resiliency and recovery efforts, which are all goals from the CEDS list, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy list. I don't have a fancy presentation today. I gave one to the Port Commission last month or so, but happy to answer any questions. And I do have one thought on a comment that happened with Aaron's presentation, if I'm able to.
You want to make that comment now?
As we were talking about the MRGs and the available funding sources, if EDI is not available, I do think I now have a position on the Bellingham-Whatcom County Tourism Board. And Dylan, who's the CEO of Bellingham-Whatcom Tourism, actually participated in a program that was similar, using tourism dollars in the Whitefish, Montana area. And so you would be able to partner with the cities that are collecting lodging tax dollars to be able to maybe utilize those dollars to help fund those types of MRGs or other programs. So I have a commission meeting tomorrow morning. And so I was just interested in that conversation and happy to kind of carry back and then talk with Rob and the airport group about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is my first time learning about that program, but it seems like a good avenue to pursue.
Yeah.
I feel like the community wants us to be pursuing every avenue that is available to us for increasing route service. And if this is one of those, let's check it out.
Yep. And one of the topics when I first joined the commission, Dylan kind of brought that up. So I'll be happy to engage and report back to Rob. Those lodging tax dollars are really to try to attract heads and beds for hotels for greater than 50 miles away. So I think it is a really good location associated with that. And the tourism through the city of Bellingham has some additional funds through a TPA, which I would say the acronym if I knew it, but I don't really, to be able to provide some additional dollars. So there may be an opportunity for it.
Okay, now back.
See, I'm not the only guy that has trouble with acronyms.
Now back to the task at hand, the Regional Economic Partnership. Any questions on that?
I do not.
I do not.
Okay, the motion is authorize the Executive Director to sign an interlocal agreement with the City of Bellingham and Whatcom County regarding the Regional Economic Partnership. Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Bell is also a yes. Now we're going to recess our public meeting and open the Industrial Development Corporation, or IDC, board meeting. Our action items are 2025 appointment of officers for the Port of Bellingham IDC board. And typically that has also followed the chair, vice chair, and secretary format. Establish the date and location of the IDC meetings for the 2025 calendar years. Did you guys get a chance to take a look at that? The date and time. Harbor Center building of the Port Administration's office in conjunction with our commission meetings. And then adopt the minutes of the December meeting, which are also included, and then authorize the 2025 budget for the IDC as outlined in the attached budget, and authorize the IDC treasurer to approve the distribution of payments of the IDC funds in conjunction with the budget. Any questions on that?
I have one. Is that 2023 correct, or is it supposed to be 2024?
No, it's the minutes of the 2023. We don't yet have the minutes of the 2024 because you're in that
We're doing
meeting
it
right
now.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
And sorry, each one of those has to be a separate motion and transaction. So we have to adopt them one at a time.
Well,
That's legal said that,
Did
not
that
me.
come from the attorney?
They're no fun.
2025, okay, motion number one is adopt the 2025 appointment of officers for the Port of Bellingham IDC board.
In mirroring our roles for the next year.
Correct.
Yes.
With the addition of Tamara as treasurer.
Any discussion? Commissioner Shepherd?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is a yes. Motion to establish the date and time and location of the IDC meetings for 2025 calendar year. Any discussion?
No.
Commissioner Shepherd?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Motion to adopt the minutes of the December 12, 2023 Industrial Development Corporation meeting. Commissioner Briscoe? Commissioner Shepherd?
Yes.
Yes.
And authorize the 2025 budget, Commissioner Bell is also a yes. To authorize the 2025 budget for the IDC as outlined in the attached budget, and authorize the IDC treasurer to approve the distribution and payment of the IDC funds in conjunction with its budget. Any discussion?
I have none.
Commissioner, now we'll vote. Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepherd?
Also yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. That disposes of that portion of the IDC meeting. So we're going to close the IDC meeting and reconvene the public meeting. And that leaves us to the final public comment period for the evening. I'm hoping that whoever wanted to stick around, they did not. So we have one more public comment. Anyone wishing to speak can speak on any topic before the port. One last time before we call it good. Anybody online wishing to speak before the commission? Okay. That's the end of that meeting, and we will go to other business.
I have one item that came in on Friday. It's an interlocal agreement with the Whatcom County Fire Protection District 8. We do this agreement every few years with them. The last one was dated 2016, I believe. It basically gives fire service to the airport on an agreed-upon price that we've negotiated with the fire district. The airport doesn't pay property taxes. That's how fire districts get funded, so we always do a separate agreement to pay our fair share and be able to get service out there. So it's an agreement you've all adopted in the past. If you wanted to authorize me to do it, the motion would be to authorize the executive director. I'm sorry, let me look at the signatures. Yep. Authorize the executive director to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Whatcom County Fire District Number 8. The agreement would be effective January 1st, 2025, and until December 31st, 2028.
And this first time we renewed this since?
I believe it was 2016 or 2017. Yeah, it's been a while.
Cost increase?
Quite a bit, yes. I think it was 40% increase.
What does that mean in real dollars?
You'd have to look at that, but it's actually, when you put it over the number of years, it wasn't that bad. So the fee will be $195,000 in 2025, $210,000 in 2026, $227,000 in 27, and $245,000 in 28. It echoes what the fire district's overall property tax increases are. So we're the same percentage that everyone else will be paying for fire district services.
This is, we pay this in addition to the, airport firefighter team we have. We contract additional service.
That's correct, because our team doesn't respond necessarily to medical, and landside fires would be fought by the Bellingham Fire Department, not our team. And then additional support to our team if there's anything on the air side.
Seems appropriate.
I have none.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote?
Do you need a
Yes,
motion?
need a vote.
A motion to approve.
So a motion to approve the executive director entering into an interlocal agreement with Whatcom Fire Protection District Number 8. The agreement would be effective January 1st, 2025 until December 31st, 2028. And we will get this up on our website.
Mr. Shepherd? Yes. Mr. Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bell is also yes. We're covered at the airport. Okay, other business. Commissioner Briscoe?
Well, I'd just like to say to staff and my fellow commissioners that 2024 has been a trying year for all of us, and I think that we've come through it fairly unscathed, and we've done the best job we possibly could for the public, and I think the return's been good for our economy in Whatcom County. And my hat's off to everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Shepherd?
Let's see.
Oh, and Merry Christmas.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to just thank everybody who came today to participate in the meeting and the hearing. I found the conversation really insightful, so thank you to the public. Just wanted to, again, give a shout out to staff for doing such a thorough presentation on Granite. Nice work. I appreciate the diligence with that. And my last one was at WPPA, we got to recognize Frank Schmelik. He's retiring from his service as general counsel to WPPA. Tim is going to, did I get that right? Tim is, what's Tim's last name?
Schermetzler, and no, I'm not going to spell it.
Schermetzler. Tim is going to be taking over. He is local here in the community and at the law firm. I just wanted to recognize Frank for his years of service and everything he's done for this port, other ports and local governments around the state, and congratulate him on retirement.
Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray.
I have nothing to add to that. Anything else from either gentleman? Okay. As far as the public hearing goes, I wanted to make sure everybody knew that we were going to take that information in. Something has got to come forward for the commission to draft before we can take any action on it. So that's the end of that. And that's the end of this meeting. Meeting adjourned for
See you next year.